At the time of this video's release, it's election day. So in this segment of City Piping's news that you should keep an eye on, we're going to lead off with the elections. We're also going to take a look at the potential challenges with midterm elections, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, China and Iran's secret dealings, and then the mainstreaming of prepping. According to the mainstream media, we're no longer alone with our prepping. So let's get to it. Also, stick around as we're going to announce our next giveaway a little later in the video. Midterm elections. Even though it's midterm elections, it's a big one. All 435 U.S. House of Representatives seats are up for grabs, as are 35 U.S. Senate seats and 36 governorships. Even before all the votes are counted, many candidates will claim an election victory. In reality, we won't know the final counts until potentially several days and maybe even a week or more after the election. The media, who call elections often way too early, only give a possible impression of the results. Many poll workers are still at work, and these poll workers, despite what you may hear, are your neighbors that are charged with remaining nonpartisan and are trying to provide a safe and secure election process to all citizens. That being said, there will undoubtedly be instances where people are turned away at the polls, and these instances may lead later to court cases. Before any votes have even been tallied, there are at least 120 cases surrounding voting that have been filed. Some suits have sought to invalidate all absentee or mail-in ballots, often the only option for deployed military and their family. Mail-in ballots are often counted differently by each state as well. And some states open them and then count them early so they can focus on polling locations. Other states open them on election day, and still other states only tally them once they have been received, those that were postmarked by the election day. Voting is a state process with lots of counting delays and lots of opportunities for legal challenges. In our highly polarized society, many actors, domestic and foreign, will try to capitalize on tribal political identities. There's a troll on the internet for nearly every ideal or comment, and the addition of bots and AI and foreign government-sponsored click houses really only makes the online temperature of everything go from merely questionable to a full-blown conspiracy. Yevgeny Prigozhin, an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin and founder of Putin's mercenary Wagner group, said that Russia has interfered in U.S. elections in the past and would continue to do so. Regarding the U.S. elections, he stated, "We have interfered, we are interfering, and we will continue to interfere, carefully, accurately, surgically, and in our own way as we know how to do." It does happen. The question is more to what extent and to what effect. The notable election concerns this cycle, they're misinformation and disinformation, though we already see a good deal of that in most areas of our life. There are concerns about cyber attacks on election offices and campaign sites, which raises suspicions about the whole voting process. There's also a concern about the hijacking of campaign and social media sites. Each instance where this occurs, again, raises doubt about the whole process and creates voter confusion. More concerning would be attacks on voter registration databases or hacks of wireless modems that transfer data from voting machines. Then there's also targeted voter harassment online and intimidation of voters around polling locations. In every election cycle, probably each one of those things is a possibility, but will it impact the overall results? Will it be enough to compel some disenfranchised people to violent actions? Here's my advice. It's best to take everything that you hear about the election with a grain of salt and not have any significant immediate reaction to it. If it bothers you, take note of it, then circle back in a couple of days to determine if there's any corroboration. Cooler heads, they always prevail. Consider the sources and determine whether multiple credible, and that's the key word is credible, sources support it or people are just laughing it off, including judges dismissing the suits. Whatever you do, don't fan the flames or spread what very likely is a rumor even further. Also, there is no denying that there are Americans actively calling for violence. Stay aware of the temperature of discord in your area. Often, even major news outlets and celebrity pundits will pick up an attention-grabbing headline story, true or not, and then stoke it further. It wouldn't be the first time that the news ran with a story that wasn't credible, so don't be duped. As we pointed out in our recent video on the supposed diesel shortage in America, there are a lot of voices spouting misinformation to try and scare people up, which is being amplified before the midterms. We try very hard on this channel to stick with just the facts. American voters have fractured politically and culturally ahead of Election Day, and they are anxious about where their country is heading. on inflation, abortion, immigration, crime, and much more. How does it look in your area of the country? Have you seen political polarization so extreme? Do you have any valid fears or concerns in your area? Trump 2024. Though all anonymous sources, many are focusing on November 14th as a possible announcement time for the next Trump presidential run. Whether it's the 14th or not, if Trump does decide to run again, the announcement may very well occur before Thanksgiving. According to the leaked sources, the Department of Justice is mulling over whether to bring an indictment against Donald Trump. Additionally, many candidates in this cycle are running on the platform of impeaching Biden and other top administration officials as soon as they're sworn into office. So, between these two things, there's no telling how things will play out in our nation over the next several months. It looks like we may be heading into a virtual free-for-all within our political landscape. According to one recent poll, nearly half of Americans fear that our country will erupt into civil war within the next decade. We're clearly moving into unprecedented times here. What impact do you think will a Trump presidential run announcement, combined with the DOJ rolling out a formal indictment against the former president, have on our nation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. International conflict. Winter is swiftly descending upon Russia and Ukraine, resulting in significant shifts in the war there. Russia has already degraded an estimated 40% of the Ukrainian energy-producing infrastructure through missile and drone strikes. It is clear that Russia wants to make it very difficult for the civilian population to survive the winter. Kiev is preparing for winter without heat, water, or power. In the city of Kiev, they're preparing to deploy around 1,000 heating points, but it's unclear if that would be enough for a city of 3 million people. It's also unclear if those would be future civilian targets for Russia's assault. U.S. and allied officials, they have said that President Biden's top national security advisor has engaged in recent months in confidential conversations with top aides to Russian President Vladimir Putin to reduce the risk of a broader conflict over Ukraine and warn Moscow against using nuclear or other weapons of mass destruction. If behind-the-scenes discussions are occurring, that's a good thing. But some have indicated that so long as the weapons and funds flow into Ukraine, this conflict will never have a resolution. Putin's not exactly going to fold up his blanket and leave the picnic. On the contrary, the current conflict is also intensifying along the battle lines. 35 villages across 9 regions, from Kharkiv to the Donetsk city of Bakhmut, are surviving without power or water with ceaseless shelling and missile attacks. Much of the region with the most significant fighting will sink to freezing temperatures in December. So both sides are vested in a massive escalation of the conflict before ice and mud stall the war effort. Some news reports that Russian soldiers are claiming they are solely being used as cannon fodder, confronting generals and other leaders, and even mutinying. Further reports reveal that Russian soldiers are taking heavy losses and are woefully ill-equipped. Anytime I mention the conflict in Ukraine in any of my videos, the comments section lights up with comments that range from raging at Putin's aggression to people who deny that there is an actual even event or conflict occurring there, claiming that the entire thing is staged. I haven't engaged as much as I did in the past with the comments section on this discussion, as it's hard to tell if I'm chatting with an actual person or a Russian bot, which I've been seeing increasingly, and I've been identifying this in the comments section of my videos. We are working on a solution which we'll be discussing here in the next few months on the channel to try and address this issue. Clearly, the conflict rages on and will intensify before freezing winter temperatures set in on the area. Air and sabotage attacks will become the norm for the next 3 months or so as both sides try to strengthen their positions to emerge stronger with spring's thaw. Iran has gone from calling its supplying of drones to Russia totally unfounded to now admitting that they've been supplying Russia with the caveat that it was done before the war. U.S. intelligence says otherwise and has receipts to prove it. The bigger picture is that both sides are pouring more and more armaments into the conflict, and the destruction will continue. In the coming months, the nuclear threat is still very real, and this probably concerns me the most, but the Russian-Ukrainian conflict is just one chapter. As U.S. Strategic Command Head Admiral Charles Richard warned in a speech at the Naval Submarine League's 2022 annual symposium, this Ukraine's crisis that we're in right now, this is just a warm-up. The big one is coming. He warns that China is putting capability in the field far faster than any country. He further stated, our principal competitors continue to expand and diversify their nuclear capabilities to include novel and destabilizing systems, as well as non-nuclear capabilities that could be used to conduct strategic attacks. As I indicated in a previous video, China is taking its usual wait-and-see approach. Some say North Korea firing a record number of missiles and China's steady pressure on Taiwan are all just distractions from China's actual goals. While China threatens global stability by threatening Taiwan and through a proxy country, North Korea, they are secretly eyeing northwest regions of Russia and polar access. Whether Russia wins or loses in Ukraine, it doesn't matter to the communist country. They're going to gain a weakened Russia, which will require their arms, resources, and alliance to remain viable on the world stage. Dependency is part of China's expansionist plans. The rest of this decade looks to be more and more chapters in a book where Ukraine is just an early chapter. And don't be fooled by slowdown of the conflict during winter. The plot line has more twists and turns in the chapters ahead. What do you think? Is there going to be a resolution soon to the Russian-Ukraine conflict? Is China just letting Russia weaken itself as it eyes territory to the north? California rice and global harvest. Many people don't realize the volume of food produced in California alone. California has more than 77,000 farms to produce more than 400 commodities. California produces 13% of the total cash agricultural receipts for the United States. It's the sole producer, 99% more, of kiwi, dates, almonds, peaches, artichokes, olives, pistachios, plums, walnuts, pomegranates, figs, and rice. Now, about 1/4 of what California produces is exported around the world. So anytime there's a downward trend in the agricultural output in the state, it is essential to understand how it will impact you. The Sacramento River Valley is one of the top producers of rice. Half of the crop is exported to Japan and Korea, and much of the sushi rice eaten in the United States is actually grown here. Yet, of the 500,000 acres of the rice typically produced, only 250,000 will be harvested this year. And the effects of the drought continue. The latest drought report from the UC Davis estimates the Sacramento River Valley region will lose an estimated $1.3 billion in economic impact, with California's rice industry facing more than $703 million in impacts and 14,300 agricultural workers out of a job. The past 8 years were the 8 hottest on record, and rivers from the Euphrates to the Mississippi are at their lowest levels in centuries. Rising global heating is making extreme weather more severe and more frequent worldwide. More and more scientists are now admitting publicly that they are scared by the recent climate extremes, such as floods in Pakistan and West Africa, the droughts and heat waves in Europe and East Africa, and the rampant ice melts at the poles. Scientists and pundits will argue over the causes and the future predictions until disaster shows up on their doorsteps, and probably long after that. There is no denying that much of the world is suffering from drought. Other parts of the world are experiencing severe flooding, warming temperatures, and ice receding. Typically, we could talk about these things for weeks and weeks, and that is usually what is done. The reality for you, though, is that agricultural yields worldwide, not just California rice, will be lower. The supply chain challenges and embargoes will further exacerbate the problem. Let the paltry yield of California rice this season be your wake-up call to get your food preps in order. It's one of the things to sustain yourself the few days after a disaster, but you need to look at being able to sustain yourself for months, possibly years. I'm sure that people from Cayo Costa, Florida to Jackson, Mississippi to Kiev, Ukraine would all endorse the preparedness message. Are you taking any extra measures regarding your food preparedness? Are there any agricultural challenges that you're hearing in your area? Are you a farmer? What's your take on this all? Please let us know by posting a comment below. Regarding this week's giveaway, I apologize as I forgot to announce last week's giveaway. So what I'll do is I'll do 2 drawings next week to get caught up. To enroll for a chance to be entered into the giveaway, simply post a comment below. And next week, I'm going to use a tool to randomly draw a winner from the comments on this video. Just be sure that your email address shows up on your YouTube account. And this is the most important thing to note. I've been getting a lot of bots slamming my comments, impersonating me, using my logo, telling people that they've won and telling them either go to Telegram or a phone number. I'm never going to reach out to you except for one way. I'm going to reach out to you only by showing your name next week on the screen, and then I'll send you, whoever, well, the 2 people in this case, an email. Beyond that, I will never reach out to contact you. This week, our giveaway is a first aid kit and a VanQuest Fat Pack. These are pretty cool kits that I've got in my bug out bags that you're able to put items in to create pretty neat little smaller kits for different purposes. So again, just post a comment below to register for that, and I'll announce the winners next week. Preppers go mainstream. City prepping has been around for 7 years now, and I have been prepping like many of you for longer than that. Over nearly a decade, I have seen the definition of a prepper move from doomsday preppers. If you remember the TV show on National Geographic, that was one of the things that kind of initially drew me in to get my channel started, all the way to regular everyday folks with genuine concerns about making it 2 weeks or 2 months after any disaster that would require the government to step in to provide assistance. The shift to the more mainstream really began with Katrina. Still, it was undoubtedly amplified during the COVID period because of war, supply chain and crop failures, and seemingly countless natural disasters. More and more people have begun to realize that prepping is not about a zombie apocalypse or insulating oneself from an extinction-level asteroid smacking into the planet. Prepping is about getting through the days, the weeks, and months after disasters. It's an acknowledgement that shtf is a sincere possibility that is statistically probable enough to warrant our attention. Over the next few years, I expect, as 60 Minutes recently pointed out, which I'll link to in the comments below, that more and more people will turn to prepping as a logical answer to the instability and insecurity of our future. I don't think this is going to put too much strain on existing resources, even though the later people are to prepping, the more it's going to cost them. Prices will continue to go up, and prepping will really accelerate with each new disaster threat or shortage. As prepping becomes more and more mainstream, I would encourage you to stay focused on your reasons and motivations for your prepping. Focus on prepping for the disasters that you're most likely to face. Maybe take our free threat assessment tool to focus your efforts. I'll link to that video off on this one. We did a video a while back going over a tool that we created to help you to diagnose what are your most probable threats. You might also explore this channel further for some of the other practical prepping advice that we try to provide on this channel. More and more people will be coming to prepping, and that's both good and bad, but it's mostly good. Now, I would say it's bad because it puts a little more pressure on existing supplies during a time of lowered supply and high inflation. Now, it's also good because if you and your neighbors are both prepared, there aren't as many disasters that you can't really survive through together. You move from being a victim to a strong community of mutual support. Wherever you are on your preparedness journey, thanks for being a part of this community that I've been working hard to build over the last several years. Whether you call it prepping, survival, emergency preparedness, or whatever you want to call it, do understand that your preparing today is really building a better tomorrow for yourself and making today all that much stronger as well. As always, stay safe out there.